All right, here we go. Going to work through the DO5 test that you all worked through on Thursday. Feel free to shoot me a message if you want a more in-depth explanation of any of these. Starting with question number 1, it's a geometric sequence, and they are asking us for the 6th term. There are already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms there, and it's a geometric sequence, so we'll find the next term by multiplying by what each one has been multiplied here, which looks like -2. So we'll multiply by -2 one more time, 416. Question number 2. In the standard xy coordinate plane, the point A has coordinates -7, -5, and we're going to translate that point 7 units to the left. That'll put us at -14, and 5 units down, that would put us at -10. Answer choice F. Question number 3. Olga worked on a project for 4.5 hours on each of 6 work days. On the 7th day of working on the project, she worked 1/3 of the time she had worked on each of the previous work days. So she does 4.5 hours a day for 6 days. That's 24 plus 3, that's 27 hours. And then she's going to work 1/3 of the amount of time that she had worked each of the previous work days. So 1/3 of 4.5 would be 1.5. So we're going to add those together to get a final answer of 28.5 hours. Answer choice B. Question number 4. Given that 5 pounds of coffee makes exactly 210 servings, how many pounds of coffee makes exactly 70 servings? Well, 70 is 1/3 of 210, so we need to take that 5 and divide by 3 as well. 5/3, that is the same thing as 1 2/3. Answer choice F. Question number 5. For RT shown below, point S is on RT. The length of RS is 10 and the length of ST is 18. What is the distance between T and the midpoint of RS? Well, if it's the midpoint of RS, this distance here will be 5. So we'll have 5 plus the 18 from S to T would get us to D, 23. Question number 6, for all real values of P and R, which of the following expressions is equivalent? So this one you really just got to multiply it out. 2P minus RP plus 8P minus 8R. And so we're looking at 10P, let's see, minus 8R minus RP, which is the same thing as PR. So we are looking at answer choice K. Question number 7, 50 shoppers at a pet store were asked whether they owned at least one cat or at least one dog. So we are looking at a Venn diagram here. We've got 3 things that we know. We know the cats only, we know the dogs only, and we know the both. There's 13 that are only cats, there's 24 that are only dogs, and there's 7 that have both. And so if you add these numbers up, they give you everyone except people who own neither. So if we add these up, this is 20 plus 24. We've got 44 people represented in the chart. However, there are 50 shoppers. That means there must be 6 people hanging outside here who own neither a cat nor a dog. Answer choice B. Number 8, Yvette has 6 pairs of leggings, 2 pairs of shoes, and 6 t-shirts. How many different groupings consisting of one of her pair of leggings, one of her 2 pairs of shoes, and one of her 6 t-shirts are available? This is just, these branching tree type problems where there's 6 choices you could make first, there's 2 choices you could make second, and there's 6 choices you could make third. They are all independent. Nothing stops you from making any of the other choices, so we just multiply these things together, and we get here 72. Number 9, according to the USDC, the approximate area of Rhode Island is 1.5 times 10 to the 3rd, and the approximate area of Alaska is 6.6 times 10 to the 5th. What is the ratio of Alaska to Rhode Island? So we're going to take Alaska, 6.6 times 10 to the 5th, and divide it by Rhode Island, 1.5 times 10 to the 3rd. So this is going to be 6.6 divided by 1.5. This would be, let's do that as a decimal. That's going to be 4.4, and then we're going to have 10 to the 5th over 10 to the 3rd, which is times 10 to the 2nd. This is one that, if you're nervous about it, you can totally enter that directly into your calculator like that. So we could do something like this, and we could say, well, let's clear this out. We could do numerator over denominator, and you could type this entire thing out, 6.6 times 10 to the 5th divided by 1.5 times 10 to the 3rd. And if you do it that way, it has the advantage of also not being in scientific notation. So we have here answer choice B. Number 10, rectangle A has a length of 64 inches and a width of 48 inches. This is one of those ones where I'll just start drawing it like literally as I'm reading the problem, 64 by 48. And we've got rectangle B, which has a length and a width that are both 3/4. So you could reason your way into doing this one without actually doing the math out. However, in this case, I do recommend just actually working out because it doesn't take that much time and it would be easy to make a mistake here. That if each length and width are 3/4 the size of the original, 48 times 0.75, we've got a new rectangle, rectangle B, and then it says here rectangle C is again 3/4 of each of these. And so we've got here a final rectangle C, which is times 3/4 again would be 36, and 3/4 of 36 would be 3/4 of 36 would be 27. So we have this new rectangle that has sides 36, 36, 27, and 27, giving us a total perimeter there, H, of 126. Number 11, this is just power to a power. Remember, x to the 6th times x to the 6th times x to the 6th. We'd have a total of 18 x's all being multiplied. If you ever forget that a power to a power means that we multiply those two things. Question number 12, king-size inflatable rectangular bed when fully inflated will have inside dimensions of 78 by 75 by 5. Air pump can pump the air into the bed at a rate of 100 cubic inches per second. How many seconds will it take to fully inflate? So the volume, 78 times 75 times 5, is 29,250, and we're going to divide that by the 100 cubic inches per second that this thing fills up to the nearest number. This would be 293 seconds that takes. Number 13, Jake wants to build a scale model of his house. The house is 48 feet long and 32 feet wide. 48, 32, and it's 3D, it's going to go up. 48, 32, and let's just say here it goes up like that by 30. He wants the model to be 8 inches long. Okay, so here's one of those problems where we have 48 feet and we're converting to a model that is going to be in inches. And so the easiest way to do this is to just say 48 times 12. This is equivalent to 576 inches. And that makes your life easier because now we can just think in inches. 576 divided by 8. The ratio here is that the model is 1/72 size. So we're going to divide by 72 to get to the model, or we'd multiply by 72 to get back. How wide in inches should his model be? Well, so the initial house is 32 feet wide, so 32 times 12. That means it's 384 inches wide, but we're going to divide that by the ratio by 72 to get us here that we would have 16/3 inches long for this model. And so 16/3 would be the same thing as 5 1/3 there. 16/3, 5 1/3. Number 14, see a circle graph, pie chart in a newspaper. You don't know the percentages. Measure the central angle of the sector titled work during the week, and you measure it to be 144 degrees. To the nearest percent, what does this area represent? Well, there's a 360 degrees in a circle, so we would divide this, 144 divided by 360, and this would give us 2/5 or 40%. And so that sector area represents 40% of the graph. Josiah stands on level ground 15 feet from the base of a cliff. The angle of elevation is 50 degrees, okay, yada, yada. They're just asking us for this height here. And so what you need to realize is you're being asked about an opposite from an angle in a right triangle, and you're being given the adjacent. And so we want the tangent because it will link the opposite and the adjacent sides. So the tangent of 50 is this opposite side y we want divided by our adjacent side 15. And so if we were to solve for y is 15 times the tangent of 50, which they've conveniently told us is 1.2. You're welcome to enter it into your calculator, but they told us it's 1.2, so 15 times 1.2 is 18. This is one where I do want to mention just kind of a gut check here. This angle is bigger than 45 degrees. If it was exactly 45 degrees, these two sides would be the same. Since it's more than 45 degrees, any answer choice that is less than 15 doesn't make sense. I will also say 60 is really too extreme to make any sense. You cannot guarantee that things are drawn exactly to scale on the ACT, but for the most part they are. So even just eyeballing this, you should be looking at either 18 or 25. Question 16. Consider the line in the standard coordinate plane. For the point on this line with x coordinate equal to 3, what is the y coordinate? They're just really testing, do you understand that you can plug in, it's kind of what lines are, is just plugging in to figure out what are the associated x and y values here and solving this for y. So we'd have 3 is equal to 4y, y is equal to 3 over 4, answer choice H. All right, let's keep that rolling. What is the solution set to the equation x squared minus x equals 12? You could just plug these numbers in, would be a way that you could do this, but the way you're intended to do it is to bring over that 12, x squared minus x minus 12, then equals 0. Factor, we'd have x minus 4 times x plus 3 equals 0, which tells me that x values that would make this a true statement are 4 and negative 3. It's probably worth just making sure you didn't mix up a negative by gut checking one of those. 4 squared is 16, minus 4 is in fact 12. Okay, so I'm pretty confident I didn't get those backwards. We're looking at negative 3 and positive 4. Question 18. The vertices of PQR are given in the standard XY plane. What is the area of this triangle? Well, the area of triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. So if I can figure those things out, I'm golden. Well, this could be considered the base here. I know it's a straight vertical line because the x coordinates are the same, and the distance from 3 to 11, this is a base length of 8. And the height of this triangle, I can just look at what is the difference in the y coordinate here. And the y coordinate here, in the x coordinate here, the x coordinate here is 8. So it's 3 spaces to the right of those 5. So we have 1/2 times 8 times 3. We have 4 times 3. We have 12. Question number 19. A line intersects the y-axis at point 0, 2. This picture isn't really necessary here, and contains the point 85. What is the slope of that line? They're just testing, do you know slope is change in y from 2 to 5 divided by change in x from 0 to 8, 3 over 8. Question 20, which of the following values of a makes the expression undefined? Okay, so one of the things we can't do in math is divide by 0. So we're trying to figure out which of these would cause a squared plus 1 is equal to 0, aka when is a squared equal to negative 1? This is the definition of I squared is negative 1, so that would cause us to be undefined. None of these other ones would cause us to be undefined. 21, what is the least positive number that has a remainder of 3 when divided by 5 and a remainder of 7 when divided by 9? Okay, so one way to approach this problem is to say, okay, they're asking me for the least positive number. So I can start with answer choice A, and I can just work my way down the list. And if I find the first one that works, since I've gone in order, I've found the least one. Okay, has a remainder of 3 when divided by 5. That's going to be the easier one to do in my head really quickly. So 24 divided by 5 has a remainder of 4. So it's not A. 35, 5 goes directly into it, so it's not that. Now 43, 5 goes into it 8 times with a remainder of 3, so it checks that first box, and now I have to think about dividing by 9. Well, 9 times 4 is 36, and so there's a remainder of 43 minus 36, which is in fact 7. And so since I've gone in order from least to greatest, I know that I've found the least one there. Question number 22. 2 warning signs begin flashing at the same time. One sign flashes every 3 seconds, the other flashes every 8 seconds. How many seconds elapse from the moment the 2 signs flash at the same time until they next flash at the same time? So let's say they flash right at this instant in time, right? We've got one light that's going every 3 and one light that's going every 8. And so one thing we can just say is we can go through and we can count up after how many seconds will each light flash. So the one that flashes every 8 seconds will flash again 8 seconds later, 16 seconds later, 24 seconds later, 32 seconds later, and so on and so forth. The one that flashes every 3 seconds will go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Aha, the first time that they will both flash again is in fact at 24. I mean, looking at these answer choices, how many seconds elapse when they'll flash at the same time? Well, the one that takes 8 seconds to flash definitely won't flash at any of these intervals. So they've made the answer choices there pretty easy on that one. Sets A, B, and C are defined below. What is the probability that a number is randomly selected from set A? What is the probability that that number will be an element of set B and of set C? Well, there's 6 numbers in A, and we just have to count how many of them this is true for. Is it true for 1? No, because 1 is not in set B. Is it true for 2? Yes. 2 is in both of these sets. It's not true for 3, 4, 5, or 6. There is only one number that's in B and C, and so the answer is B, 1 out of 6. 24, what rational number is exactly halfway between 3/16 and 7/32 on the real number line? This is one that I would say is definitely one that you can do very quickly on your calculator. If you didn't do it on your calculator, what we're doing, remember, is we are just averaging these numbers. That is what it means to be halfway between two numbers on the number line, is to average them. So we want to take 7/32 and 3/16, and we want to add them together and divide by 2. And so we would have 7 over 32 plus 6 over 32 divided by 2. We'd have 13 over 32 divided by 2. We'd have 13 over 64. So 13 over 64 is right, and I just want to remind you that you could do this on your calculator as 7 divided by 32 plus 3 divided by 16, divide that by 2, and there you go. 13 over 64 would be a way to do that pretty quickly. 25, the circle that has a center of -3, 4 and is tangent to the y-axis is graphed in the standard coordinate plane. What is the area in coordinate units of the circle? Area is pi times the radius squared. We just got to figure out what that radius is. Well, it is tangent to the y-axis, not the x-axis. So the one that we can use for the radius is the x-coordinate. We know we're 3 units away there, so that's the radius. Pi times 3 squared, 9 pi, answer choice C. Number 26, an 8-sided game piece with faces numbered from 1 to 8 is rolled twice. What is the probability that an 8 is rolled both times? Those are independent events. So you just have here 1/8 times 1/8. Answer choice F, 1 out of 64. When 3x minus 2 to the 4th is expanded and like terms are combined, what is the coefficient of the x to the 4th term? Ooh, I really like this one. What I saw when I saw it in my head was I said, okay, I can actually do this part a bit in my head. If I multiply 3x minus 2 times itself, I'd have 9x squared minus 6x in the middle plus 4, and then I'd have this again, 9x squared minus 6x plus 4. And from here I can tell that I don't really care what the rest of this looks like. It's definitely 81x to the 4th. So I know that the coefficient on the x to the 4th term will be 81. One way to really think about what's going on here is if you write all of these things out, right? If you just imagine doing this sequentially, the only way you're going to get a to the 4th term is if each of these 3x squareds is in turn multiplied by each other. When you do this expansion out, you'd have 3 to the 4th, which is 81. Question 28, Bo and Tia will balance perfectly on the seesaw when W1 times D1 equals W2 times D2, where those are their weights and distance from the fulcrum. Okay, Bo weighs 60 pounds and is sitting 3.5 feet from the fulcrum. So that's this right here, weight 1 times distance 1. To balance, that needs to be equal to, okay, Tia weighs 2/3 of Bo's weight. So 2/3 of 60 times 2/3 is 40. And they're just asking us, how far does Tia need to sit? So we would do 60 times 3.5. That would get us 210 equals 40 times x. We do that 210 divided by 40. We'd have 21 over 4, which is equal to 5 1/4. Answer choice H. Question number 29. Given that 3 times x minus 2 is equal to 6x minus 3, what is the value of 9x minus 2? I looked for a shortcut here, but at the end of the day, it's just easiest to multiply these out. This is 3x minus 6 equals 6x minus 3. So we'd have, add 3 to both sides, -3 is equal to 3x. We have x is equal to -1, so 9 times -1, that's -9, minus 2 would get us -11. 30, Allie's planting flowers around her square patio. The region she's planting is a 1 foot wide strip, yada yada. What is the area of the shaded region? Easiest way to do this one is to cut it up like this into 3 rectangles. This rectangle right here is a 1 by, well, we'd have 5 feet here plus another 1. It's a 1 by 6 rectangle. So we've got this 1 by 6 rectangle here. We're going to have the same 1 by 6 rectangle over there. And finally, we're going to have this 1 by 5 rectangle here. So effectively, it ends up just being 6 plus 6 plus 5. And so we'd have here J17. Question 31, consider 3 circles A, B, and C. The sum of the radii of those circles is 5 meters, okay? So A plus B equals 5. The sum of the radii of A and C is 8, so A plus C equals 8. And finally, the sum of B plus C is 7. Find C. So they've given us 3 equations, 3 variables. We can solve this in a system. Probably the easiest way to do this is to line up right here. I'm going to put A plus C and A plus B right next to each other. So I'm going to bring this A plus B equals 5 right here. And so my strategy is I'm going to subtract these things. That leaves us with C minus B is equal to 8 minus 5, which is 3. The trick is that I can now take this up here, C minus B equals 3, and I can add these 2 equations together. The positive and the negative b's will cancel out, and we'll get 2c is equal to 10, c is equal to 5. Now, if you didn't plan it out or get that lucky, you might have to go replug these in to figure out what c is. For me, it just worked out to get c is equal to 5. 32 is just a do you know this definition? Complex conjugate means the number that has the same real part and the opposite signed imaginary part to a complex number. So the answer, just if you know that, the answer is J. The way to really remember it is it's the number, right, that you could multiply a complex number by to get rid of the imaginary part, because these middle plus and minus 6 i's would cancel. You'd have 4. Well, I squared is -1, so this is just plus 9 is equal to 13. That's what makes this a complex conjugate. That's why it's interesting enough to have its own name there. 33, the function x cubed minus x squared plus 9x minus 90. X is the number of items sold. Company breaks even when the profit is 0. How many items must they sell to break even? So we're looking at when is profit equal to 0. And so a trick here, just to kind of, you could do this not too bad on your own, but one thing I did here was I just started with answer choice C, right? And so we're going to say 9 store as x. So a good one to remind ourselves of how this store function works, because now you can really just type in x to the third minus 10x squared plus 9x minus 90. And we work that out, we get -90. And so the trick here to do this fast is I can just say, okay, let's go on to answer choice D, 10 store as x. And I don't have to type that all in. I can just hit up, 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 up. Is it not going to let me do that? Oh yeah, well, it's just a little different than on your calculator. So you basically hit up twice and then enter that thing again. There we go. 10 is the number that when I plug it in will cause us to break even. So really just a plug and chug there one on D. I'm sure there's a way to factor that out, but not going to be easy. 34, which of the following statements shows that any subtraction can instead be written as an addition? I was between here, like J and K, because it certainly looks like any subtraction can be written as an addition. So J and K are the only ones that really look like they make sense to me here. And what we're looking for is which of these, or they're the ones that like, they immediately look true to me, at least J does. And I think one thing that's useful here is to just make up numbers. Let's say A equals 5, and let's say B equals 3. And so for J, what we're looking at is, does 5 minus 3 equal 5 plus negative 3? That seems pretty clear, and it seemed pretty clear to me there that these should both be 2. K was intriguing, but let's see what happens here. We'd have 5 minus 3 is equal to, negative 5 plus 3. Now that's not going to work because that's going to be negative 2. So it took me a second there. It didn't immediately strike me why K would not be correct, but it is in fact J that is showing that statement. That was a weird one here. 35, the way to do this quickly is if you just see that the square root of 9/4 is 3 seconds, right? Because 3 seconds times 3 seconds would be 9/4. And the cube root of negative 1/8 is negative 1/2, because negative 1/2 times itself 3 times would be negative 1/8. So if you see that, it works out pretty easily here that this would be 3/2 plus 1/2 would be 4/2, which would be 2. But again, this is one where it's not that bad to do this on your calculator. The square root of 9 divided by 4, 9 divided by 4, plus, you would have to know where this is math, so it's good to know math, number, or is it math, there it is, the cube root. You can do any root there with nth root of negative 1 divided by 8. What did I do wrong there in my math then? Let's see, 3/2 minus negative 1/8, because I trust this, so let's see. Let's see what that gets there. 1. So this would be 3/2 minus negative 1/2. This sure looks to me like it should be 3/2 plus 1/2 would be 4/2, which would be 2. So what have I got wrong here? I think there's something funky here. Let's see what happens if I do math. Let's copy this expression, and let's go back and let's change this up a little bit. I think it's something to go on here. I think there's some parenthesis thing, because I'm pretty confident in that. Negative 1 divided by 8. Oh, I put a plus sign there. That's all. So I put a plus sign there. There we go. Answer is 280. So that one's really not that bad to put into your calculator. Question 36, given that f of x is negative x minus 4 and h of x is 2x plus 3, what is h of f of x? Well, that literally means take h of x, and everywhere you see an x, put a parenthesis and put what f of x is. They're just testing your knowledge of that there. So this would be negative 2x minus 8 plus 3, negative 2x minus 5. Answer choice F. Question 37, rectangle JKLM is shown below. What is the cosine of KJL? Okay, so we do have, it's a rectangle, so we do have a 90-degree angle, so we can use sine, cosine, trig, all that good stuff. But what's made this difficult is that we want the cosine. So cosine is equal to ca, the adjacent, divided by the hypotenuse. And so the adjacent side, I know it's 9. And from that alone, I can probably guess that it's going to be D or E. And even further, I can kind of see what's happening here. And I know the answer is going to be D. But if we work this out, this hypotenuse side, right, a squared plus b squared is c squared. The hypotenuse squared will be 9 squared plus 7 squared. The hypotenuse squared will be 81 plus 49. I can kind of look at the answer choices to help myself there. That's h squared is 130. So h is equal to the square root of 130. And so again, the reference angle KJL is this angle here. So we're looking for adjacent, which is 9, divided by hypotenuse, 1, or the square root of 130. Question number 38, the first 3 elements of a pattern are shown below. Each element is composed of small squares that are 18 inches wide and 18 inches long, okay? Each one is 18 inches longer. That makes sense because here's another 18, here's another 18. What is the area, careful, in square feet of the 4th element? So luckily they haven't been rude and given you one of these answer choices to be in square inches, but it is a little bit tricky. The trick here is to say, okay, this is 18 inches long, this is 36, add another 18 here, and we'd have what, 52? So we have 36 plus 18, we'd have 54 plus another 18, we'd have 72. So this final square is 72 inches by 72 inches. Before we go back and compute this area, right, if we just did 72 times 72, we'd have an enormous number because that's square inches. The easiest way to do this is to convert this to feet first, dividing by 12 inches in a foot, and we'd have 6 feet. So really we just have a 6 feet by 6 feet square here, so we have an area of 36 square feet. Answer choice K. They give you a funky operation in 39 defined on the set of positive integers by the rule AB is equal to A plus B squared. They're just testing, can you follow order of operations, which still means to do what's in the parenthesis first. So we'd have A plus B squared, and we would perform that same operation to 5. So 4 plus 3 squared is 9, plus 4 is 13. We're going to do that with 13 and 5. And so we would have 13 plus 5 squared, 13 plus 25. Answer choice is B, 38. The number A is a positive integer greater than 1. Okay, let's just say 2. The number B is a negative integer. The number A to B is, okay, so let's say this is A to, or 2 to example, to the negative 4th. This would be 1 over 2 to the 4th. So like 1 over 16. So it's definitely not 0. It does appear to be positive, but let's check and make sure. 2 to the negative 4th, well, that'll never be negative as long as, well, it'll be negative, never negative, as long as that is a positive number there. 1/16 is definitely rational. 1/16 is definitely not an integer. So a positive number, you take any positive number and you raise it to any power here, doesn't matter, you're going to get a positive number there. Answer choice is G. 41. Okay, so this one's a tricky one. What made this one really tricky, it made it one of the most missed ones here, is that you had to really carefully read this here. When a truck returns to the office respectively, giving only the last 3 digits of the cumulative mileage. And so the reason that has to be true is if you look at these, like mileage out means what was the mileage reading when the truck left, mileage in means what was the mileage reading when you bring it back. So for a few of these, it makes sense, like 274 to 499, 736 to 989. There's one of these that doesn't look like it makes sense, but that's because this only shows us the last 3 digits. So this could have been 1,989 to 2,245. And so you had to, and that's why they also have to tell you the truck does not travel more than 1,000 miles in a day. So you know it's not from like 1,989 to 5,245. But when we look on June 20th, this is the one that matters, to go from 989 to 245, well, we have to go 11 miles to roll that thing up to 1,000, plus another 245 to get to a total of 256. Another way to do that is just to say, just pretend it is 1,245, and we're going to subtract 989. And so we do that, and we would get that same thing there. We would get 256. Question 42, the figure below represents the route traveled on July 16th. Aaron started at the office, drove 75 miles due north to the first stop, then 40 miles due east to the second stop, and then finally 105 miles due south to the last stop. Okay. On his return trip, he drove a straight road from the last stop to the office. Given that he drove at the truck's average speed, which they tell us in the problem is 50 miles per hour. Which of the following is the closest to the time in hours that Aaron drove on the return trip? So they mean just on this leg here. So you had to make a triangle because you need to figure out what this length is. And so we know it's a triangle that has this width of 40, and it's the difference between 105, the right vertical line, and 75, the left vertical line, 30. And so what we have here is we have a 3, 4, 5 triangle. You could do the Pythagorean theorem if you forgot this, but we have a 50-mile return trip. He goes 50 miles an hour. Correct answer is H. It will take him 1 hour to complete that return trip. Finally, question 43. From June 17th through June 21st, the average hours away was 550. To the nearest 0.01, what is the hours away when Ben is driving the truck? Classic problem where we have been given 4 out of 5 numbers in an average, and we're missing the last one. The idea here is if you were to say, I don't know what Ben drives, but I know that if I add Ben's hours away plus Aaron's plus Lenny's plus Aaron's again plus Lenny's again, if these things average out to 550, that means if I take all these numbers, I divide by how many there are, which is 5, I would get 550. And the result here, basically what happens is it's going to be Ben plus the sum of all of these numbers, 5 plus 5.5 plus 6 plus 5.75. The sum of those numbers is 22.5. And if I multiply both sides by 5, I get that the total to get an average of 5.5 would have to be 27.5. Well, if I do that, and sorry, I did that when I got this one wrong when I did the actual test because I did the same thing here. This is 22.5. I don't know what it is about that made me do that. 22.5. And again, I think it's because it's 22.25, something weird about it. When you subtract those, 27.5 minus 22.25, we'd get here 21 over 4. We'd get that Ben has to have driven 5.25. Very common problem, missing in an average. Basically, you take the known average, you multiply by the number of terms you'll be adding up, and then you subtract all the ones you know, and that'll tell you what the one that you have left must have been. We get here 5.25. That was one of the harder ones here in terms of time it takes. Number 44, triangle ABC shown below. The given side lengths are in meters. What is the area in square meters of ABC? Okay, this one really helps to know. I can't quite figure out. I don't think it's essential, particularly if you use sine, cosine, tangent, but it's really helpful to know your 30, 60, 90 triangles here. And so we're basically, if we are able to figure out this height, we'll be able to figure out the whole thing. And this height is so much faster to find if you know that in a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the 3 side lengths are x times the square root of 3, and 2x. And the trick here is just to be able to write these things in order. X is the smallest of these 3 numbers, so it's the smallest side. 2x is the largest of these 3 numbers, so it's the hypotenuse. And x root 3 must be the longer of the legs. Well, they tell us that this hypotenuse is 6. So this length here must in fact be 3, which means that this height must be 3 root 3. And so 1/2 the base times the height, that'd be 4 times 3 root 3, would in fact be 12 root 3. I'm thinking about that. I'm really not seeing a way to do this without quite knowing that aspect of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I think you really do need to know that for this one. Number 45, tough one here. The value of the log of x to the nearest 0.1 is given for 4 different values. Find the value of log of 3 times log of 10 to the 5,000. So good things to know going into the ACT. One of the most important things is that you know this log rule. The log of x times y is equal to the log of x plus the log of y. And the reason that's really important on this problem is if you try and actually do maybe this fancy iPad one will do it, but the log of 3 times 10 to the 5,000, they've divided this problem, or they've made this problem such that, it actually, it does work here. But if you remember from when you took this, it usually won't work on a regular TI calculator. They've designed this one so that it can't handle the number this large. And what you needed to do was to break this into the log of 3 plus the log of 10 to the 5,000. And furthermore, log of 3, they tell us, is 0.5. You had to know that the log of 10 to the 5,000 means what power of 10. Remember, if it doesn't say anything here, it's an understood 10. What power of 10 is 10 to the power of 5,000? Well, it's 5,000. And so we have 5,000 plus 0.5. We'd have answer choice D there. And actually, this comes up again in like 3 problems, knowing these log rules. So I would definitely, I just erased them. I would definitely make sure you know these log rules. Question number 46, Susan completed 20 courses in college and her GPA was a 3.15. If all of her grades were A's or B's and each course carried equal weight, what is the number of A's that Susan received? Okay, so I'd say this one is a real candidate for plugging in. You could try and set this up like this. You could say 4 times the number of A's plus 3 times 20 minus the number of A's, all divided by 20 is equal to 3.15. Actually, that's not a bad one, right? Because if you average, it's 4 times how many A's there were, plus 3 times how many B's there were, which is 20 minus the number of A's, equals 3.15. So if we do it that way, it won't take that long. 3.15 times 20, we'd have 4A plus 60 minus 3A is equal to 63. A plus 60 is equal to 63. This should tell us that the number of A's is equal to 3. So that looks like answer choice G. Let's check that answer. 3 times 4 plus 17 times 3. That gets us a GPA points total of 63. Divided by 20 courses, you get 63 over 20, which is in fact 3.15. Once again here though, if this didn't immediately occur to you, this is still a pretty quick one to plug in. Just for example, if she got 1A, you'd have 4 times 1 plus 3 times, you just have to do the 20 minus the number there part on your own. And so what we'd have here is we'd have, if you tried answer choice A, 61 divided by 20, you'd get 3.05 on that one. One here, just like quick gut check, if her GPA is a 3.15, those answer choices don't make any sense because that would be like way closer to 4 than makes any sense. Those should be the only 3 you're looking at there. 47, you have to know that the volume of a cylinder is the area of the base times the height, and the area of the base, if it's a cylinder, is pi r squared. So we have pi times 3 squared times the height of the cylinder, which is 5. So this should be 9 pi times 5, which is 45 pi, but it's not a full cylinder, it's only a half cylinder. So we have 45 pi divided by 2, answer choice B there. Like I said, this log one comes up again. And you really just got to know these ones cold. The log of m over n is the same thing. It's like the opposite of the multiplication one is the log of m minus the log of n. And so one thing here, like particularly on this problem, is you should definitely, if you're not sure, just make something up. Let's just say 3 and 2. The log of 3 divided by 2 gets you, let's convert that to a decimal, I don't know why this is giving me that, is 0.176. And you would just run through these answer choices, right? And you could try the log of 3 divided by the log of 2. Again, it's going to make me just wouldn't do this on your calculator, but you'd see that that's not the same thing. But eventually you would get to the log of 3 minus the log of 2, and you would in fact get to the same decimal answer here. So totally a candidate for plugging in. And notice, look, we're at question 48, and this is still can be like a pretty quick problem if you just plug in. Question number 49, for what real number b, if any, will the equation a minus 2b plus ab equals 2 be true for both a equals 1 and a equals negative 1? Well, let's see. If A is 1, we would have 1 minus 2B plus, well, if A is 1, A times B is B, okay, equals 2. So we would have 1 minus B is equal to 2. And if we plug in negative 1, instead, we'd have negative 1 minus 2B. Well, now A is negative 1, so we have minus B is equal to 2. And so we'd have negative 1 minus 3B is equal to 2. Well, we can just add these equations together, right? If I line them up, I'd have 1 minus B is equal to 2. I'd add these things together. The ones would cancel. We'd have negative 4B is equal to 4, and B is equal to negative 1. That was the easiest way to do that one. You could also just kind of plug these in and figure that one out. Not too difficult. Question number 50. Okay, we've got some dresses. We've got production costs. There's 5 dress styles. She's going to hang 1 dress of each style along a rod. How many total possible orders? Permutations. They're telling you the order matters here. So the number of dresses that can go in the first slot is 5. But then you've used 1, so there's only 4 left. Now there's only 3, there's only 2, there's only 1. You multiply all of these things together and you get answer choice J, 120. 51, she'll offer a coupon, 20% off. What is the regular price she must set for a style B dress so that the sale price is $15 more than the cost of producing one style B dress? Okay, so the production cost is 25. She wants the sale price to be 25 plus 15 to be $40. But this is the sale price after you do 20% off. So 20% off is to multiply by 0.8. So I'm going to undo that by dividing by 0.8, and 40 divided by 0.8 should get us there, $50. 40 divided by 8, $50 there. Answer choice D. The labor cost of each dress is 40% of the production cost. What is the average labor cost per dress? So the trick here to doing this one quickly is to realize you could sit and do 15 times 40 plus 25 times 40 plus 45 times 40. You could do all of that, but this is going to have the same result as just finding the average cost of the dress, 15 plus 25 plus 45 plus 60 plus 65. If you add those things together, the average cost of the dress is $42. All of the dresses have the same production cost of 40%. You multiply that by 0.4 and you get there $16.80. Answer choice F. Question 53. It took 0.5 seconds for an object to travel 60.5 feet to the nearest 0.1 miles per hour. Okay, so we need to get from 60.5 feet divided by 0.5 seconds. We need to get all the way down to miles per hour. Well, so first let's go from 0.5 seconds to a whole second. So I just multiply both of these things by 2. I'd have 121 feet in 1 second. Let's see here. Maybe now we go from seconds to minutes. So I multiply both these things by 60. So that would be 7260 feet in 1 minute. I'm going to multiply by 60 again to get per hour. And so I'm going to run out of room here, but I'd have 435,600 feet per hour. But I want miles per hour, so I just need to divide this by 5,280, and that will tell me that I have there 82.5 miles per hour. So just take it one step at a time there on that one. 54, we've got some vectors written, which tell us basically like a magnitude and a direction here. Which of the following vectors is equal to u plus v? So we're going to be taking what this vector does, and we're going to be adding what this vector does to find a new one. What I want you to notice about these vectors is parts of them are going to cancel out, right? U heads up and v heads down. So we're going to have some cancellation there, but u and v both head to the right, right? So when we add these things together, that effect is going to get magnified. You're going to have some right movement. So it's definitely not P, it's definitely not R. And that really gets rid of like almost all of your answer choices here. And even you don't even have to actually calculate this out. If you just kind of reason through it, the only one that shows like it looks like it could do both of their motions combined, right? One way to think about this is like you can add these head to tail like this, right? So if I take V and I move it on to the tail of U like this, I'd have this new vector, which sure looks like Q. Another way you can actually write out what's happening with U, U has a rightward motion of 1 and an upward motion of 2. V has a rightward motion of 1 and an upward motion of -1 because it goes down. If you add these things together, we're saying you'll have a rightward motion of 2 and an upward motion of 1. Right 2 and up 1 is, in fact, what Q does there. So the answer is K, answer choice Q. 55, in the standard coordinate plane below, a shaded square is shown. 2 lines each intersect the square at exactly 1 point. So what they're basically telling you is you can't have a square, although it wouldn't really be possible from the origin, you can't have a line that touches at 2 points or corners like there. It has to touch just one time. I guess what they're telling you is you can't go have a line that's like that because it would touch the square at 2 points there. The only way it's possible to have an intersection at a single point here is to draw them like this. And the reason I know they're starting from the origin is that, look at this, it says y equals rx. There's no y-intercept there. It's y equals some slope times x plus 0. And it's y equals some slope times x plus 0. And so it's these 2 lines here are the only possible lines that fit that description. The blue one has a slope of 4/2, which is a slope of 2/1. And the red one has a slope of 3/3, which is a slope of 1. So we subtract these things, 2 minus 1 would be 1. 56, a random number generator generates an integer 1 through 6, will be used 15,000 times. Each time the number is recorded, which most likely characterizes the distribution. Okay, if you have random numbers 1 through 6, at the end of the day, what this is going to look like is a uniform distribution, right? If you just keep randomly drawing 1 through 6, they're all equally likely. This would be a uniform distribution. There's no reason to expect it to be skewed left. There's no reason to expect there to be more 6s. There's no reason to expect there to be more 1s. There's no reason to expect anything bimodal. There's no reason to expect there to be more 3s. None of these make sense besides uniform distribution K, because these numbers are uniformly distributed. They all have the same probability. 57, in a standard coordinate plane, define the HV distance between 2 points to be the length in coordinate units of the shortest path using only vertical and horizontal segments. So it's like, I want to get from A to B, but I can only travel in this horizontal and vertical zigzag. So I can basically only make a movement up and a movement right. Basically what they're telling you is to subtract the y coordinates and subtract the x coordinates to basically be like, here's your path A, here's your path B. And so 5 minus 2 will tell us the distance between those y values, and 3 minus -4 will tell us the distance between those x values. Answer choice A is the only one where those line up. 58, let S be the mean and standard deviation respectively of the ages of children in a certain daycare center, which gives the mean and standard deviation of the ages of the same children 5 years later. Well, the average will definitely go up by 5, and so what you had to know here was that if I take a distribution of ages and I shift everyone right 5 years, the distribution standard deviation doesn't change. All I've done is shift the distribution over. The standard deviation is exactly the same. Answer choice H. 59, we've got an ellipse that has been graphed. Which of the following are the points of the foci of the ellipse? So first thing you got to know is, like, what are the foci? They are as you go along the longer side of this ellipse. So along the long side of this ellipse, what we're looking for, it's a little bit tricky to see here without a string to demonstrate. But I'll tell you right now what the foci are. They are these points here. And what they tell you are, I want you to imagine you could take a piece of string, and the string cannot change in length, but it can move. And you're going to take this piece of string and you're going to move it around the outer edge of this ellipse. You're kind of like holding it taut and moving it, and my claim is that this string will be the same length if you have correctly put those foci down. And so the like first level of understanding is just to know that the foci go like roughly here and roughly here. None of these other answer choices were close. That would be at 1, 3, and 9, 3, answer choice D. Question number 60. Lucinda ran a 3-mile cross-country course in 24 minutes, while Franny ran the same course in 21 minutes. Which of the following values in miles per hour is the closest to the difference in their average speeds? So this is very similar to that other problem. If I want miles per hour in the end. So I ran 3 miles in 24 minutes. Well, the way I'm going to get from 24 to 60 minutes to get miles per hour is to multiply by 2.5, 5 over 2. So I'm going to do 3 times 2.5. That's going to get me to 7.5 miles in 1 hour for the first person. And for the next person, same 3-mile race in, though this time, 21 minutes. So 60 divided by 21, what we get here is we get a little bit trickier. We get this decimal here, 2.8571. So let's just do 3 miles times this fraction, 20 divided by 7. We'll just get it close enough. Math to decimal. We have here about 8.57 miles per hour. And so if we take 8.57 and we subtract 7.5, we would have closest to 1.1 miles per hour, answer choice